Struggling with weight loss? Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet is a clinically developed nutrition program designed to promote fat loss while protecting lean body mass. Developed at USC's Longevity Institute, it assists the body in entering a fasting-like state that helps reset metabolism and target visceral fat. In just 5 days, Prolon offers a science-backed approach to weight loss without extreme restriction or guesswork. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/now.
Get business done with the new American Express Graphite Business Cash Unlimited card. With unlimited 2% cash back on all eligible purchases, unlimited 5% cash back on flights and prepaid hotels booked through American Express Travel Online, and a flexible spending capacity that can grow with your business, you'll have the confidence to keep building. Apply today and earn a welcome offer of $1,500 cash back after you spend $50,000 in qualifying purchases on your new card within the first 6 months of card membership. Terms apply. Learn more at go.amex/graphite.
Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here. This is a hypnosis session all about betrayal. And I was working with a client that was very, very intelligent, very, very capable, and very knowledgeable about the way that the mind works. And they themselves had a lot of experience in the world of therapy. They were on the receiving end of a betrayal. There was infidelity within their relationship, and there was a breach of trust on more than one occasion. And the way they were dealing with that was a quest for the truth, of really digging deep and finding what happened. And they found out an incredible amount of what happened. They were still in that relationship. Things were starting to be restored, but there was still a feeling of anger and resentment, and they were still thinking a lot about the other person that got involved in that infidelity. This is really a session about acceptance, not forgiveness. Forgiveness can always come later, if at all, but acceptance that actually, if you continue to invest in the painful element, you actually lose what you really want, which is a good quality life and a good quality relationship. And it uses a metaphor of a squatter. A squatter is a term we use in England if someone illegally starts living in a place that isn't theirs. So just imagine that you've got this big apartment building or a big house, and someone illegally starts living in that room, and they're living rent-free, and they're using electricity and water, and they're watching the TV, they're watching Netflix, and they're not paying a thing. Just imagine that that is a metaphor for someone else that was involved in your relationship as the other person, and they're living rent-free in your head. It's about time to evict them, and that's really the essence of this hypnosis session. Now, if you like the idea of working with me and you're not sure where to start, I would encourage you to watch a webinar that I've created, and the webinar is called Why Hypnotherapy Works When Everything Else or Lots of Other Things Aren't Working. And the reason for that is that a lot of people that try hypnosis have tried other things first, and they haven't got the result that they're looking for. So I've created a webinar to kind of explain all of the questions that normally come up when people are considering working with me. So if that's of interest, check that out. That's going to be in the comments, in the description of the show notes. So check that out. For now, though, you might get some value from this session. So find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be distracted or disturbed. Relax and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in, Breathe in that slow, long, relaxing breath. And as you exhale, allow your eyes to close. And with your eyes closed, feel a wonderful ripple of release from your eyes down into your jaw, neck, and then shoulders. Breathing in a wonderful feeling of resourceful relaxation, and exhaling, just releasing any pent-up pressure, stress. Imagine every outward breath is a release valve. So allow yourself to let go with every exhale. And as you breathe in and breathe out, give yourself the acknowledgement, the acceptance that for a period of time, ever since something was revealed to you, a betrayal of trust, new knowledge that once known couldn't be unknown. And that part within you awakened some part of you that has been on watch, scanning, reviewing, picking at threads and pulling at them, following them, checking for more. And that part has been doing exactly what it was asked to do. It's been protecting you, seeking reassurance, checking that there isn't anything left unknown, searching for the very information that would finally allow you to make sense of things, or for you to feel safe. But just here, right now, in this particular time, I'm going to gently ask that that part stand down. Not forever, just for now. Because right now, there is nothing to investigate, nothing to discover, nothing to verify. Just this space, just your breath, just the rare permission to simply stop. And I want you to scan your body for any changes that you feel when you give yourself that permission to stand down. Maybe it's a slight looseness or heaviness in the shoulders. Maybe it's a release somewhere in the chest. Tension in the jaw softening or loosening. The eyes resting completely behind those closed lids. And you've been the most alert person in the room for a long time. Vigilant, on guard. And that alertness is exhausting. But rest is not weakness. Rest is what allows you to do everything else better, including the things that actually matter. I'd like you to imagine a staircase taking you from your conscious to your unconscious mind. And as I count down from 10 to 1, just imagine walking down that staircase from the conscious to the unconscious. 10, that first step. 9, the second step. As you allow each number to carry you further from the scanning and the searching, 8, 7, deeper into your own stillness and peace. 6, then 5, halfway down the staircase now. 4. The investigation can wait. It has waited long enough. And the most important thing now is to give yourself permission to reflect from where you are now, not where you have been. 3, 2, 1. And as you leave the staircase, I want you to find yourself here in your own space, your own quiet. And everything we do from here belongs to you. There's something that needs to be said, acknowledged, and accepted. Not just heard, but understood at a deep level. What you have navigated and experienced, not through desire and choice, but you were forced to go through, is genuinely extraordinary. And not in that way that gets casually used, but in its actual meaning. You've gone through something outside the ordinary, beyond what most people are asked to endure, while simultaneously managing other responsibilities. You were already spinning plates, and then had to spin many more. I want you to look back on the past from where you are now. The initial discovery, those subsequent lies told while looking you in the face, the gradual, painful extraction of truth through your own sheer determination, the multiple layers of revelation, and the professional consequences that caused a ripple through your world and theirs. And even that decision to stay, made not from weakness, but from a desire to hold on to something that once was good and real. And you know more than most. What most people do when they discover what you discovered. When the toothpaste is outside of that tube, it can never go back. And you know that what you have done, that level of honest engagement you've demanded, the accountability you have required, and the scrutiny you've maintained is genuinely exceptional. It would be too much trouble or too much pain for most, but you did that anyway. So you know more than anyone else what the emotional, intellectual, and even physical cost of that level of sustained engagement is. You've sat with people like you who are carrying what you are carrying, the pain of betrayal, a breakdown in trust, and you've understood from the outside just how heavy it is. Because it is as heavy as you have found it to be. And that's not a sign that you're handling it poorly. It's the honest weight of the thing itself. But sometimes you get to see things different, from a different perspective. Deep down, you already know it's not an accident that you found yourself helping others going through similar pains that you've experienced. You've heard their stories. You've understood their anguish, feelings of betrayal and trauma from the inside out. And sometimes you've wondered why the advice, insights that you've given them don't always work when you think about it for yourself. But from that professional place, that wise, experienced part of you, the part that's genuinely helped people through difficulties, I'd like you to bring to mind the version of you as if they were a client of yours sitting across from you right now, and see those qualities. See that they are intelligent, accomplished, deeply loyal. You're observing yourself as if you're someone else, a client of yours, someone that has fought harder for truth and accountability, but also notice that they are exhausted, not from weakness, but from the sheer sustained effort of carrying this almost entirely alone, while appearing to function normally to the outside world. And I want you to feel empathy, connection, but also inspiration for that version of you. And I wonder what that version needs to hear from you, from that wise place. Not the platitudes and not the general assurances that time heals, but the honest, grounded wisdom that you actually carry. What would you say to that version of you? Would you encourage them to investigate even more, still carry that doubt, to never forgive, never accept? Maybe you would ask about the energy it's consumed, about what it is and is not going to give them. Sometimes there's an unconscious desire for revenge, fairness, truth and understanding. But that version of you already has that information. The core facts have been established, and additional details, if they do exist, will not dramatically change the fundamental shape of what happened. And every hour spent digging, asking, continuing to figure out what happened is an hour not spent the very life that that version of you actually wants to be living. What would you tell her that gently but honestly would reveal some kind of breakthrough, change in insight or perspective? Some people believe that truth is what sets you free. And what is the truth that that version of you needs to hear? Maybe it's enough is enough. Maybe it is time now to move on. And you can tell yourself whatever that version of you needed to hear, but hear it and feel it from that same place of professional clarity. It's not a reprimand or a criticism. It's not losing. Experience it as the honest counsel of someone who genuinely wants and wishes you well. And there's a person who's been occupying space in your mind rent-free, taking up square footage in your thoughts, your energy, your attention, without your invitation and without your permission. And I want you to reflect, think, and notice clearly what that occupancy has cost you. Hours spent thinking, probing, replaying, the mental energy directed towards someone who is not in your life. Think of the emotional bandwidth that could be available for the people and the work and the future that actually mattered to you. What if all of that time, energy, and emotion was redirected instead towards someone who deserves none of it? Some people believe that forgiveness is necessary to move on. But forgiveness is not what is being asked of you here. Forgiveness is a destination some people reach eventually, on their own timeline, in their own way. And it's not required for what comes next. What is available to you right now is something more immediately useful. Indifference, ambivalence, the psychological eviction of someone who was never entitled to the space they took. I want you to imagine that you are the owner of a building, a valuable building, with limited rooms, and somehow, without your agreement, someone moved into one of those rooms and began using your resources, your utilities, your attention. There they were, living rent-free. But what if today you are completing the eviction? Not with anger. Anger keeps people present. They remain, and not with the performance of forgiveness. A cockroach has not earned that. An illegal squatter has not earned that. But with the final, quiet, administrative act of removing someone who was never supposed to be there from the space that was never supposed to be theirs. This was an opportunist. It's time to end that emotional drain. It's time to starve the cockroach, starve the parasite. And I want you to imagine that room, that space is being cleared. Utilities like electricity and water and gas all disconnected. The attention that was feeding their presence being redirected. And what remains is simply an empty room that you are choosing to repurpose for something or someone that belongs to your actual life. And notice something interesting about this process. Indifference is not achieved through effort. It is achieved through withdrawal. Every time you have reviewed what they did, or imagined what they did, or considered what justice or a confrontation would look like, you've been giving the attention that kept them present in that room, rent-free in your mind. And withdrawal of that attention is the act that makes them small. A plant needs oxygen and sunshine and water, and if they are starved of it, they will shrivel and die. So imagine them becoming smaller and less significant with every hour you spend thinking about your own life rather than hers. With every conversation you have that focuses on your future, a happy future together rather than a painful past. With every morning you wake up and give your first thoughts to something empowering and positive that belongs to you. What if that is the actual justice? Not a consequence that they suffer, but a life you build where they have no place in and no power over. Because there's a version of moving forward that requires you to pretend the past didn't happen. To manufacture feelings of trust that aren't yet real. To perform an act of forgiveness that hasn't arrived. But that version doesn't work because you can't sincerely produce what isn't there. But there is another version, the one that's actually available to you right now. Not forgiveness, but acceptance. Acceptance is not forgetting. You remember clearly. Acceptance is not excusing. What happened is not excused. And acceptance is not the removal of vigilance. You retain the right to watch and to assess and to adjust based on what you see and what you notice. Acceptance is the decision to stop spending today's energy fighting yesterday's facts. It's the recognition that what has happened has already happened. That the energy directed at changing something that cannot be changed is changing and taking energy from the life that still can be shaped. Think of your partner and acknowledge they've made choices in the past that caused genuine damage, but has also made choices since. Those choices aren't nothing. Damage to relationships, an early end to a career, a changing relationship with drink. I want you to acknowledge it may not be perfect, but it is evidence. Evidence of some accountability, recognition, or natural consequences that just come from that cause and effect in life. And these choices don't erase the damage, but they are real too. And that wise professional in you knows how to hold the pain and the progress simultaneously. Acceptance says, I see what happened clearly. I see what has changed clearly. I have decided with open eyes to remain. And that decision deserves the energy that investigation and probing has been consuming. You will never fill the void of that black hole. But you don't have to. In fact, the more you direct your time, energy, and emotions elsewhere, that black hole collapses into itself. And I want you to think of the future you actually want. So allow your mind to travel forward, not far, just far enough to be genuinely on the other side of this particular season, after a period of truth and reconciliation, after a period where anything that needs to be said has had an opportunity to be said. The line in the sand, imagine the future beyond that line. And think of how you want it to be in your relationship, with your family, with yourself. Imagine a future where you have a quality of life that feels good. You can enjoy vacations. You don't have to forget, but imagine a future where you've moved on. And see your partner as your partner, not as a probationee, not as a defendant in a case, and not as a criminal, still paying the price. See them as the man you chose again, with full information. And what that choice makes possible is something that neither of you have been able to fully find out yet. And you can't until you cross that line. And I want you to allow all of the unconscious resources to know what it will be when you cross that line. And only you can decide when and how that line gets crossed. So as you hold that thought, it's time to return with a sense of new perspective, new clarity, and a feeling of impending acceptance. So take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose, and wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes, connecting and calibrating into the here and now as I count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.